Hello everyone and Happy New Year. Welcome back to work and welcome to the first online chapter meeting for the Building Designers Association of Australia for 2021. We have a stellar lineup of events over the coming months and two fantastic presentations today. Lucy Bingle from LinkedIn and Daniel Webber from Webber Insurance answering your questions with Samantha Anderson. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Jennifer Binns. I'm a building designer based in Tasmania and host for the online chapter meetings. And I'm joined by Sarah Jane, managing the technology in the background. Post a message in the chat box and let us know where you're logging in from. It's great to have you all with us. Firstly, I would like to personally welcome all of our new Thermal Performance Assessor members from ABSA. For those of you who aren't aware, BDAA and ABSA merged late last year, and as a result, we have a lot of new faces with us today. I'm looking forward to welcoming some of you to the Tasmanian chapters and will no doubt get to know more of you through various events. So welcome. As I mentioned, we have a lot of great events coming up, and here's a few of them. Sarah Jane will post the registration links in the chat box for you as we go. In 2019, the NCC introduced a performance solution to the natural light requirements under health and amenity. And on Thursday this week, Samantha Anderson will run through the verification pathway and go through the pros and cons of this approach compared to the traditional deemed to satisfy provisions. The event is a Category 1 event or one formal CPD point. It's not too late to register, and Sarah Jane will post the link in the chat box, which will provide more details. We also have Crossing the Threshold to Accessible Housing, which is sold out for February. However, if you would like to be notified when this next runs, please register your interest and we will notify you of the new dates. I've heard that it's going to be run again in March, but we don't have confirmed dates at this stage. There's just two more items to tell you about. If you purchased a copy of the standard subscription for 2021, there is going to be a tutorial webinar on Thursday, February 18 to learn how to navigate the system, which is run by SAI Global. And finally, there is an opportunity for face-to-face interaction. If you're in the Sydney area, Caroma are hosting an event. They are welcoming 50 guests into their showroom, and the rest of us will be able to log into the live stream of the event. The presentation is on smart bathrooms and will include using smart systems to improve health, well-being and energy savings. It's a free event, so register to attend either in person or via Zoom. Now on to today's presentations. So just a quick run through of the Zoom tools for those of you who aren't familiar with them. We welcome you to ask questions throughout the entire meeting via the Q&A box, and our presenters will answer the questions either throughout the presentation or at the end. And if you'd like to ask a question via audio, there's a raise your hand tool, and we just ask that you check there's no background noise that will interfere with the audio when we unmute you. The chat box is also there as a continuous message thread, and SJ will post links in the chat box as we go. So first up, I'm pleased to introduce Lucy Bingle. Lucy is a LinkedIn marketing strategist and provides expert LinkedIn consulting services and marketing training nationwide. She's passionate about helping companies and individuals build brand awareness and thought leadership. Lucy and her team of expert marketers work with businesses across all industries around the world, developing and implementing their LinkedIn strategies. And during this presentation, you'll learn the importance of optimize, personalize, and socialize. You will learn what a best-in-class LinkedIn profile looks like, and you will learn effective techniques to help you find your voice and create opportunities on the LinkedIn platform. So have we got you online, Lucy? Ready to go?
I am. I'm all ready to go. Thank you for having me.
Over to you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Firstly, I want to say hello to everyone and thanks for having me on. I'm now going to share my screen so that you can actually all look at the presentation that I'll be working through today. So if you can just give me 1 second while I just put that up for you. Okay, so I'm going to turn off my video because I find it really distracting having that going at the same time. As Jen said, if you've got questions, please pop them in the chat box as we go and then we'll manage them at the end. So basically, I'm lucky enough to present to you today about how to find your voice on LinkedIn. So just to recap exactly what I do. So I basically have a digital agency that solely focuses on LinkedIn. We work with large corporates, but small to medium-sized businesses and also startups developing and implementing their LinkedIn strategies. We have account managers, researchers, and content creators that help me do that and implement those strategies. And I now also have linkedinduction.com, which is actually an online LinkedIn training program for employees and for business owners. So if you are looking to get some more deep training happening for you or your team, it's definitely worth taking the time to have a look at LinkedInduction. But we've been now going for around 5 years, and we basically do LinkedIn all day, every day. So I would say that, we really know our stuff, and we're all digital marketers, and this is our sweet spot. So that's why I'm able to share my knowledge with you guys. So the biggest game changer that's happened in digital disruption over the last 5 to 10 years has been within the sales and marketing space, and it has been digital disruption. So we know that your buyers are basically doing their research way before they get online to talk to you or even pick up the phone to have a chat with you. So they're doing their research and they're having a look at exactly what products and services are out there. So it's super important that everybody on this webinar today understands that they need to have a really robust digital footprint around themselves as professional experts, but also around their business. And given that a buyer is 57% of the way through, we need to know that you are standing out from the crowd. And another really important point to talk about here is that, in terms of a digital touch print, LinkedIn is the first thing that appears for you. So if you go away and actually put into Google Lucy Bingle after this session, the first thing that will come up for you is actually my LinkedIn profile page. So it's not even my website, which is lucybingle.com. It's actually my LinkedIn profile page. And that is the same for everybody on this session. So right there is the reason that it makes sense for you to invest some time and energy into making sure that your LinkedIn profile is really best in class and does stand out. So what are the reasons for why you would be spending all this time and energy on actually making sure that your LinkedIn presence is best in class and stellar? Well, it is the world's largest online social professional platform. There's no competition to it. There's over 690 million users worldwide and 11 plus million users in Australia. I think the bullet point that I really want you to think about and look at here is this trust and integrity piece. We know that if you start to grow and nurture a large quality group of people within your community on LinkedIn and really start to share your knowledge and insight, you will build brand trust and integrity, which means that when it comes to people making commercial decisions, you will be in the mix because they would have seen this track record of great work that you've done, of services you've provided or products that you have. So if you can start to build that trust and integrity, you will, just by virtue of the nature of being there more than not, you'll start to, cultivate real relationships and commercial outcomes. The other thing to be mindful of or note here is that obviously COVID has had a huge impact on sales and marketing and how to connect with our customer base. And we know that LinkedIn's had a 26% uptick in usage since the start of COVID, which, yes, sure, some people are looking for new jobs and there's no doubt about that, but actually it's also that we're also looking for suppliers, for experts, for products, etc. And therefore there's a lot more eyeballs on the platform, which gives brands a lot more opportunity to be presenting their services, their projects and what they've done. For those of you who are familiar with LinkedIn and have already a LinkedIn presence there, you'll know that you own a LinkedIn profile page, but you can also own a LinkedIn company page. And when I talk to clients about developing a robust LinkedIn strategy, the strategy comprises of two halves. I want to see a LinkedIn profile, which is effectively an online capability statement that talks to you as the individual, what you do, who you serve, how you help, and then the company page, which is effectively like visiting a head office. So it should be having posts around insights, articles, industry leading, innovation, case studies, etc., your projects that you've finished. It could also be demonstrating your corporate culture, and it could also be advertising job posts. The way I always talk about LinkedIn is that it's very much like the old-fashioned yellow pages. If you're not there, you're not there. And that goes back to that comment I made earlier about, doing a Google search and finding the LinkedIn profile page as the first digital touch point. So it's really important that everybody on this session understands why you would set yourself up on LinkedIn and have a great LinkedIn profile page, but also why you would bring to life your company page. So people often say to me, okay, so we have the profile page, we have the company page, but why are we actually doing this? You know, the reason that we do LinkedIn marketing, or why LinkedIn marketing exists as part of an overarching digital strategy, is that it is all around building brand trust. So it's around building brand awareness and trust, and educating the market on who you are and what you do. It validates what you do because you are able to, first and foremost, find the people within an organisation, see that they're experts, see what skill sets they bring to the table, see the certain types of projects they've completed, what their career has been prior to joining that organisation. They can also read recommendations and the like. So there's lots of different areas within a profile page that really cement you as being a subject matter expert. It also demonstrates the problems that you solve and how you actually help your customer and the difference that you make. And if you can get your team or you as an individual to be actively engaging on the platform and consistently demonstrating what you do, how you help, and the problems that you solve, you will start to be seen as an expert yourself, but also as a go-to firm for solving those problems. LinkedIn marketing also allows you to cultivate and grow this quality group of people, which means that you start to create a community that you can educate and inform and share your point of view with and your insights and knowledge with. Now, by doing all these steps, you will start to also get people that want to work for you. So you will start to attract talent to your organisation, and you'll start to get people interested in working for you and providing services for you and getting that talent coming your way. And all of this combined, and which is obviously the holy grail, is that this is what creates commercial opportunities. And this is why when people then have to make those decisions around using your services or purchasing your products, that they would then come to you. So it's about reaching the right audience, engaging with that audience, and then motivating that audience to make change or take change. So the first thing that you'll often hear me talk about, and I do this when I'm doing my training for organisations, I focus very much on optimise, personalise and socialise. So optimize is, you've got to really get that profile page right, and you really need to make it best in class. And so what I've got here is a laundry list of things for you to look at when you go back to your desk and look at your own profile, your LinkedIn presence, and look at your own profile page. I want to make sure that you've got decent professional headshots and a high-res background image. So, what I talk about with LinkedIn marketing, it's not necessarily rocket science, but it is really important with setting you apart in a very crowded marketplace. So have decent headshots. I don't want to see party photos. I don't want to see wedding photos. I want to see, head and shoulders, clear images of you looking down the barrel of a camera. Background images could be projects that you've worked on, could be services that you provide. I mean, you guys have a highly aesthetic industry, so you can do good visuals. And then I want you to look at your headlines. So you need to differentiate yourself within the market. So really define what you do. So that could be by geolocation, it could be by the actual service that you provide, and it could be by the certain type of customer that you serve. So niche yourself because you need to be findable. Then you'll see that you've got a bio section or a summary section, and this is where the bulk of the work will happen. This is where I want you to really clearly articulate what you do for that organisation that you work for. What is it that you deliver to the customer? How do you help? What are the problems that you solve? In your profile page, you're able to add rich media files. So this is the opportunity for you to be attaching a slide share document with your projects that you've worked on, or it could be a video of fly-throughs of projects that you've done. It could be an article in industry publications that you've worked on. I want you to bring your page to life. So anything that makes it stand out more, be more aesthetic, be more vibrant and dynamic, that's great. It's important to then work through your history, so your experience and track record. But what I don't want to see is War and Peace under each previous role. I think you can just put 1 to 2 paragraphs that clearly talk to the deliverables that you did in that role. The other things that I want you to think about with your profile page is seeking recommendations. So like with everything in life, we like to work with people who are easy to deal with, that deliver on time, on budget, etc. So if you've got some great examples of clients that you've worked for that would be happy to provide those recommendations, I strongly urge you to seek those out. The first thing you need to be mindful of there is that you have to be connected on LinkedIn before you actually seek a recommendation. But try and get 3 to 5 recommendations under your belt, okay? Because these are all validation points. So when somebody goes and Googles you and then they go and look at your LinkedIn profile page, they then read your summary section, they then look at the skill set that you have, they then look at the rich media files and the projects you've worked on or the publications you've been in, they then look at your previous history, then they're looking at the recommendations, and all these things are making decisions in their mind about whether you are the person that they want to engage. Now, they at that point will also probably double click on the company that you're at today, and that will then drive them to your company page. And that's, another little opportunity, a marketing opportunity to turn that company page into a little marketing channel. So sharing insights, articles, etc. If you work for an organization that's got a team of people, I would also recommend creating a LinkedIn assets folder on your intranet or on your share drive and putting in there the pre-qualified background images that can be used, or projects that can be used, or marketing collateral that you can have on hand, just to make it really easy for your people to go and update their profile pages and attach the right collateral to those profile pages. Now, once you've optimized that profile page, which is the first thing that you need to do, the next thing that you need to be spending energy on is building a valuable and quality group of people. So what I've got here is a great little diagram for you just to work through. So first and foremost, connect with your colleagues, then connect with current clients, ex-colleagues, professional peers, and alumni. Now, the crowd that gets missed the most every time on this slide is actually your current clients, and it's because you're working with them all the time. So you're probably not in a LinkedIn mindset and you're not thinking about marketing, but actually they're your biggest cheerleaders. They'll be the ones that really high-five you on LinkedIn when you do share new projects or talk about new stuff that's going on, or new hires, or whatever the information is that you're putting out there. They'll be the ones that congratulate you, that endorse you, and agree that you are great at what you do. So it's really, really important that you get those current clients. If you're under 500 connections on LinkedIn, you've got to get above 500. And the simple reason being that whilst ever you're under 500 connections, you've got a number associated with your network, and you can be deemed as not being very well connected. And it's, pretty crazy thought, but still, just to get that off the table, I would like you to try and get to above 500 so that people don't even question that. So again, just to reiterate that point, it's all about cultivating a really quality group of people. So think industry leaders, thought leaders, clients, prospects, professional peers, etc. One of the things that we often do for clients is we do these network build outs, and they're a really valuable course to do, well, not course, but a really valuable project to do, because we're able to put somebody onto that profile page and actually really grow it with the right group of people for them to be sharing knowledge with and then socializing with on LinkedIn. So obviously, if you optimize your profile page and then you personalize your LinkedIn connection strategy and grow a great group of people, you then need to start to socialize on the platform, which is the third piece of the puzzle. So what you should be doing with your eyes closed, if you've already got a company page that is active and sharing knowledge and insight and stories and articles and projects and company culture, with your eyes closed, you need to be liking and commenting on each one of those company page posts, okay? Because that is on message, on brand. It's an absolute no-brainer. Then what I want you to really start to think about doing is once a week finding a quality piece of content and sharing it via your LinkedIn profile page and wrapping it in smart commentary. So finding an article that's in one of your industry publications and putting your point of view around it, or and demonstrating that you're expert. Okay, so it's not a huge lift in that it's only once a week, but from a confidence point of view, if you haven't done this before, it definitely does. You've got to be a bit brave to do it, but it's a really important thing to do because, given that marketing is so saturated at the moment and it is so hard to stand out from the crowd, this is one way that you can really quickly start to cement yourself as being expert. So once a week, do a post on LinkedIn. I want you also to engage with your community's activities. So actually engage with what your network is up to. So like and comment on what others are doing, share the love. At the end of the day, LinkedIn is a social platform. So you got to give some love to get some love. But the other thing to remember is liking it alone does not cut it. It really is about actually sharing insight and knowledge and having something to say. And that is how you do get noticed. Now, if you are already creating content, i.e. blog posts, articles, and the like, make sure you're also publishing them on the LinkedIn platform as articles associated with your LinkedIn profile page. So yes, those articles or those projects should be getting published via your website first and foremost. They could be going into industry publications as well. But then once they've done their rounds there, make sure you add them as articles from your LinkedIn profile page too. The importance here is that I want you to be active on the platform. So one of the things that people say to me all the time is, oh my God, like you've got us doing so much. Well, actually, all I want you really to be doing is 3 times a week, 25 minutes. So if you can schedule that into your week, you're off to a good start. Okay, so this is about being authentic. It's really super important that you are genuine and authentic. So make sure that you speak with a natural tone and with something that, that it reflects who you are. Make sure that you're engaging with content that really does resonate. Share stories. People are powerful. People love seeing stories with their people in there. So you're able to tag individuals, tag publications, etc. Use hashtags. That's also important because it makes your content more findable. People always say to me, you know what, Luce, where are we going to find all this content? Well, the good news is content's everywhere. So think about industry publications, papers, national papers, international papers, McKinsey's, Harvard, whatever publications you do, but the important thing to think about there is that quality is absolutely paramount, and doing a mix of content is good. So videos, infographics, insights, articles, etc. It's also really important to be sharing content that talks to your own brand, so your own corporate culture, your own projects, innovations that you might have in-house, and sharing that knowledge with others. Now, I'm racing through this because I'm on a short amount of time, but this brings us to your company page. So your company page is the other piece of puzzle. You have your LinkedIn profile page, then your company page. So your company page should be talking really on average 3 times a week, and it should be talking to brand content as well as high quality third-party content. Now, the reason that I suggest you do high quality third-party content is because it demonstrates that you're outward facing and that you're industry leading and that you've got something to say around your industry and the innovations and the changes that are happening there. But it's also important to be sharing brand content, whether that be around your projects, your people, your culture. So try and make it a mix of content, and that you're pushing it out through your company page and driving traffic back to your website. Now, lastly, this is the LinkedIn strategy. So basically this, which I'm giving away to you right now, is what you guys all need to be doing. You need to be optimizing your team's LinkedIn profile pages. So bringing them to life, setting them up as being seen as subject matter experts, training your team on how to do LinkedIn marketing and how to be most effective on the platform. So, giving them those tools, then getting your individuals, and if you are a solopreneur and you're a one-man show, making sure you are building your own valuable network, and also if you have a team, making sure that all the individuals within that team is also building a valuable and relevant network. Because obviously once you've got that large network, you can then start to communicate your knowledge and your stories and your industry news and getting it out to those people. If you've got a content strategy, leverage it. Make sure that your events, your storytelling, your case studies, your projects, your innovation are getting shared across all your channels, and that LinkedIn is amongst them. Consistently market on those company pages and on the personalized page, so socializing on the platform. Be holistic, share third-party content, because it again shows that you're industry leading and that you know your stuff. Overlay all of this with some targeted sponsored campaigns. So really think about brand content that could be pushed out to a targeted audience, and identify what that audience is, what the piece of content is that you're going to push out, and then determine a certain fee. So that's a sponsored advertising campaign. And I always recommend reviewing your analytics. So if you're going to put this LinkedIn strategy into play, write down today how many people you're individually connected to and how many people are following your company page. Do LinkedIn marketing for 8 weeks and then read again how many people you're connected to and how many company page followers you've got. And then start to look at the individual posts over that 8 weeks and see what is hitting the mark and then what isn't. And then start to change or adapt your strategy to reflect the right types of posts that will resonate with your audience. What I do know about this game, and having done it for a long time and doing it very well, is that the strategy is only successful when the whole team's on board. So you need everybody from your managing director to all the others engaging with it, being set up for success, and really turbo boosting your brand on LinkedIn. Because at the end of the day, this is where the commercial money sits. So this is where your audience could be sitting. So it's really important that we not only educate that audience, but we turn them into valuable leads. Now, that is the end of my presentation. So I'm going to take myself off video, but I'm sure there are probably some questions that will fall out of that. So let me just stop this. And let me put myself back on video. Hello.
Hi, Lucy. Thank you. That was great. There's a lot of really useful information there.
Good.
There's one question here from Derek, who's asking whether he needs 500 links, the company page and personal pages. How does that work when you've got separate parts you put on?
So when I'm talking about connections and 500, I'm talking about getting 500 connections on your LinkedIn personal profile page. So as an individual, connecting in with 500 people there. The company page, you can't buy following and you can't connect out to people. They opt in to follow a company page. So it's a very organic and slow growth. So you need to focus just on building your own individual network.
Okay. Do we have any other questions for Lucy while we've got her online? I don't think there's any coming through. I mean, I think certainly LinkedIn is one platform that I don't use effectively, so I've got a lot out of that. I will be ready to go in there and
excellent. Oh, that's good. Well, hopefully that has enlightened, some people on this, and that they can see the value in doing it. There is absolutely no doubt that this is where, the professionals are sitting, and so if you can get yourself in front of them, it's a real opportunity.
Do you recommend, hang on, we've got a question here from Alan who's asking what the best way is to handle a career change?
So the first thing, if I was handling a career change, my advice is that you need to update your personal professional profile page, make it best in class, make yourself stand out, really hone in on the skill set that you have and include that in your summary section, like talk to the problems that you solve. I'm not a massive fan of, there's an opportunity at the moment where you can actually put a open to work button on your profile page. I don't necessarily think you need to be doing that. I think you're better just looking at how to position yourself on the platform to be seen as quality talent. Yeah.
Great. Ben has asked how many members already have LinkedIn, and I must say I'd be interested to know also how many of our designers and assessors have got and effectively used their LinkedIn profiles. Have you?
I have no idea.
No.
No.
One day we'll do a poll, SJ, and see how many people are using it. What are the advantages of LinkedIn over other social platforms such as Instagram?
Look, it depends who your audience is and that you're selling to. So where I sit, and we work with clients across all industries, and the reason that we know it's a really valuable platform is that because it's a commercial space. So you have professionals sitting on there who are actually using it for commercial reasons. So in contrast to, say, Facebook or Instagram, which is a bit more B2C, which means business to consumer, as opposed to B2B, which is business to business, you've got an audience that are sitting there in a commercial mindset. They're from 9 to 5. They're thinking about business. They're thinking about work. So often, again, it comes down to who your target audience is, but that's where they'll be sitting anyway. So if you can interrupt their day with actually posts and insight and news around you or what service you provide, you're setting yourself up as being that expert in that space, so that when they need to hire you or use your services, you're going to be in the mix because you've actually been in their feed, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. Brendan's asked, what are the benefits of a premium subscription?
So premium subscription, for those that don't know, is you can actually pay to have an upgraded LinkedIn account. And what that allows you to do, it gives you 5 degrees in terms of your network build out. And so I can be connected to Jen, and I have visibility of Jen's connections, and I have visibilities of Jen's connections. But if you have a premium upgraded account, you get 5 degrees. So you get another 2 layers.
Okay.
Another thing it also allows you to do is you get a certain number of in-mails, which are basically direct emails to anybody on LinkedIn. So, but we're looking at, depending which one, you get 15 or 25 direct in-mails. However, I don't believe that people need to be paying for upgraded LinkedIn accounts unless they're recruiters and unless they've got a really sales-heavy role. So I would rather you get your profile page set up, connect in with relevant people. Once you're connected to those people, you can direct message them anyway. So therefore, why would you pay for it? And it's sort of like anything. Until you're driving the car like a Ferrari, don't pay until you know how to get around it properly.
Makes sense. I've just got a couple more questions before we're going to have to move on to our next presentation. Jason's asked how he can target mum and dads that are not tech-minded.
Well, the mums and dads that aren't tech-minded, the way you target people is through industry job titles and locations. So if you can determine sort of what industries they're in, job titles or their locations, then you can target them.
Okay. And David's asked, do you consider LinkedIn as important for companies who work more with the public over those who work business to business? And I guess that's part of that same.
Yeah, so I'd need to understand who their target audience is.
Yeah, okay. Where clients might only ever be one-offs, is it worth connecting with them on LinkedIn?
Yeah, well, they could be your biggest advocates, and who knows who they're connected to and who they refer your services to.
Okay. Cassie has asked how you manage a really long career break. So I think that's probably you answered part of that initially when you were talking about.
Well, I think the first step is to set your profile page up and make it look best in class.
There's questions still coming through. Are you happy to stay online and keep answering questions for people while I move on to the next presentation?
I'm going to have to, do you want me to stay on until after your presentation?
No, I think if you have you got access to the chat box, if you could just stay online and just maybe look at the questions that are coming through on that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Wonderful. All
That's
right.
okay. I'll answer them on that.
That would be great. Thank you very
Okay.
much,
Thank
Lucy.
you. No problem.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. So we'll move on now to our second presentation, which is Daniel Webber from Webber Insurance and Samantha Anderson. Daniel and Samantha are going to discuss the value and importance of PI insurance, what it can be used for, what it can't be used for, and how to make sure you have the appropriate level of coverage. Daniel and Samantha are going to be presenting in a Q&A format, so we'd encourage you to post your questions and Samantha will read them out live for Daniel to answer. So have we got you online, Daniel?
I'm here.
Hello, I'm going to hand over to you and Samantha.
Awesome.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Hi everyone, welcome Daniel and thank you all for coming. So to give you guys a bit of background, I work at a company that's heavily invested in facades. PI is something that we talk about on a daily basis in Inhabit. And so what I've learned to understand about getting to know some of our members over the last 12 months is PI is this sort of mystery box that a lot of people don't understand. I've also had the privilege of meeting Daniel from Webber Insurance, and him I have had some enlightened discussions on PI and how it works, and I suppose the level that our members understand it versus the level they don't. As well as a bit of background on myself, I'm also fortunate that I've acted as a technical consultant on a number of PI claims. So when you see it from that perspective, you learn to realise how important it is and how important it is that you understand it. So Daniel, I've got the tough questions for you today. Do you want to give yourself a bit of an introduction first, or do you want me just to nail you with questions?
Well, I'm hoping that most people have seen me. Obviously, our lovely new ABSA members may not have heard of me before, but for all you BDAA regulars, some of which are texting me now, being a bit silly, but you should know me fairly well. I am, the insurance person. I don't take it too seriously, but yeah, I have a lot of knowledge that I can share with you. So once we've done with this, I'll make sure you have all my contact information and, building designers, thermal assessors, energy, all that sort of stuff. Hit me up and I can help you out with that. So yeah, fire away with the questions. I'm ready to go.
So Daniel, what are the most common causes of a PI claim? What goes wrong?
Well, I wanted to say stupidity, but I didn't think that would be very helpful. So I'll elaborate on that with complacency. I think is one of the main ones. So complacency, inattention, and just not following a process that you would otherwise normally do. So I see a lot of issues there. You do something repetitive, you make assumptions, and then it's when you don't follow up on the assumptions or have your checks and balances, it'll be the one site that you don't measure correctly or you don't get a survey on. That'll be the one that causes you issues. It's also taking on projects that you're not comfortable with, that are outside your skill set. When you're dealing with clients that you just don't have that great relationship with, when it breaks down, that's when it gets nasty. So all those sort of relationships, selecting your clients, selecting the right projects, that's going to be the way to avoid those real common mistakes or claims. If you go into the next layer, how you use and engage subcontractors, what you use in terms of documentation and waivers and all that sort of stuff. So that's really we see the most issues.
Oh, and that makes a lot of sense. So I suppose my next question was going to be, how can members reduce their risk of PI claims? But I suppose complacency is the big one there. But do you have any other advice for them on reducing their risk? And what are the, we talk about complacency, but where are the big areas they're going to get themselves in trouble?
Yeah, definitely. And the documentation piece and keeping records and actually saving them and making them accessible just seems like it would be a given, but it's something that you need to, spend some time in, invest in a CRM, document management system, whatever you do. Don't just rely on, email trails and having 10 years and 40,000 emails in your inbox. Like, that's just going to make it really hard. So finding a way to organize and file and keep correspondence, make sure that you have checkpoints with clients, you're in regular contact, all the things that kind of go without saying. Get their approval for changes and get it in writing. Make sure that you use an engagement agreement. That's something that we're working with Keystone and the association right now. So that will be a huge help to a lot of people. And I know I'm sort of harping on this. I actually, believe it or not, ran a session on risk management, and the whole theme of it was just trusting your gut. So you will avoid so many issues if you work with the clients you want to and on the projects that you're suited to. And your risk management could honestly be as simple as that, because if you have great clients and projects that you're really comfortable with, you'll avoid 95% of the issues you come across.
No, and I think that's a good point. And I suppose the other thing that I'll emphasize is at my company, we have all those processes in place. Remembering to follow them, having a process isn't really good enough, right? You actually have to actively follow those processes.
Oh, yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to get yourself in trouble really quickly.
Yeah.
Daniel, I'm hoping that you might be able to open the chat question and answer box and read the question. For the benefit of everyone else, Gerard Wilson has asked a question about duty of care. He's enclosed a extract from his PI insurance broker regarding an exclusion endorsement undertaken by his underwriter. Maybe if you could want to start giving some high-level statements about what to be careful of in relation to duty of care, and you might be able to write a more formal written response for Gerard once we're finished talking.
Yeah, I'm just having a quick read now.
Unfortunately, Gerard's question was a more complicated one. And I suppose the big concern that he's sort of expressing here is there's no definitions around duty of care, meaning solicitors can debate that term at length, which is 100% accurate, and I've seen this done.
Yeah, absolutely. I might take that offline. I need to sort of read and comprehend that. I don't want to sort of talk out of school, and obviously there's other things being referenced there, so I wouldn't like to comment specifically. Sorry, I'm just still reading.
But maybe you might be able to comment around, I suppose, one of the big things is how to read your insurance policies, how to read for your exclusions, and just generally what exclusions to watch out for.
Yeah, for sure. And I think to understand, and I know I'm probably jumping ahead in some of these questions, and I might mold 3 or 4 questions into one if you don't mind me taking off on a little tangent here.
We like tangents. They've got to think
we
about
like tangents. Okay, good. I'm in the right spot. So Jennifer can just give me a kick in the backside if we're running out of time and whatnot. So feel free to cut me off.
Will do.
Yeah, good. So to understand what you're not covered for with the PI policy, it's important to understand what you are covered for and what the intentions are. And majority of professional indemnity policies at the moment are written on a basis of civil liability. And not to get sort of too technical, but civil liability under law relating to the most common form of tort law, which you don't really need to know except for we're talking about negligence. So basically you fail in your duty, you owed a duty, and that breach of your duty is what gave rise to the claim or the loss, and that is what the claimant will be sort of seeking from you. So basically, you have a project, you need to do a good job because you're a professional and you stuff up, then that's where the civil liability comes into it because you are negligent under law. That's what the intention of professional indemnity. So then when we go into the next layer, it doesn't say you are covered for making an error in your calculations or you are covered for this and that, which is a little dissimilar to when you think about sort of car and home insurance that lists all these things that you are covered for and then you're not covered for everything else. This works the other way around. It says you're covered for everything under law, civil liability. Here's what you are not covered for. And the most common things are contractual liabilities. So we talk about liabilities that you accept under contract that go over and above what the law says that you will be liable for in a negligence claim. So contract says one thing, the policy says another thing. So the policy will effectively say, we cover you for a breach of, professional duty, civil liability essentially. And your contract will say, well, no, you're going to be liable for these liquidated damages, this delay in the project. You're going to indemnify us for this. You're going to release us from this. You're going to, make good on all these things. That's where there can be a disconnect. So contractual liability is a massive, massive issue. But in saying that, it's being legislated as well at the moment. So there's been a lot of legislation passed recently for unfair contract terms to protect, small businesses and whatnot from the big bad people. So I could do a whole session on contractual liability, but just be aware that that's there. Like I said, liquidated punitive damages is a common one. What we refer to known circumstances or prior circumstances. So professional indemnity is a little bit different to your car and your home and really any other different type of business insurance, because it's only any good when you have it in place. So it doesn't matter if you had professional indemnity at the time you did the job. It matters, do you have it when you get made aware of the claim? And if you don't, then you're not covered. It doesn't matter if you had it for 20 years and then, you retire and then 5 years later. So that's what we refer to as claims made insurance.
And Daniel, just before you move on, maybe that's a point worth making. Like, what is your recommendation, or and someone else might correct me on this, in a lot of states there is a contractual requirement about how long you keep PI after you retire, because that's one thing that a lot of people forget, that although they're no longer practicing, just because you're retired and enjoying the sunset, if you're not continuing to pay your PI insurance, that's where you can get in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, and look, the general rule of thumb was always 7 years, and it was 7 years because that's kind of the statute of limitations for most things. That obviously varies state to state and issue to issue. 7 years is just kind of that period that people were using, but that's kind of being tested now, particularly out of Victoria. There's been cases where designers have been held responsible for works done that they were constructed 10 years ago, so meaning they designed them 12 years ago, and they're hearing those sorts of claims. So whilst you say 7 years you should be fine, the reality is there's probably no certainty. So then the question becomes, how long do you want to pay for the peace of mind to sleep at night? And I've got plenty of clients that'll do it for 1 year or no years and think, nah, my clients are fantastic, I'm not concerned. And I've got others that'll be like, nah, let's do 7 years, and then in 7 years I want to review it and maybe do another 2 or 3 or 4. So there's no standard, but there will be requirements, particularly in larger contracts, that say, hey, you need to hold it for X number of years after this project's finished. So
make sure we all start putting that into our retirement plans, huh?
Yeah, that's it. Exactly right. Well, it's important that you make sure that you factor that into your costing as well, because if you're doing a project and you're making, $20,000 fee on it, they want you to have, $10 million of PI and they want you to have it for 10 years and you're going to retire next year, then, you have to factor that in.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a good point, because I think I don't know, for a lot of people, they sort of think about getting to the end of their career and moving on, but there's these sort of little details that you still have to consider before you move on and kick off into the sunset. And I'm sure both you and I would agree, if I'm sitting on a beach somewhere, I certainly don't want someone lodging a PI claim against me. That'll upset me greatly.
Exactly.
So, changing tact a little bit, non-conforming building products, a Shergold rear report, poor building quality, these are in the media, I feel like, on a weekly / few times a week basis at the moment.
Yeah.
How are these issues affecting PI insurance? What are you finding the changes are in insurance? Are we getting more claims? What's been happening?
I'm not really seeing more claims per se. The biggest impact has been in the certifiers and surveyors space, depending what state you're in. Obviously, there were, the building codes and Australian standards that said one thing, and then there were performance solutions which were signed off by surveyors and certifiers. is to, yeah, you can use this product or whatnot, whether it's, technically compliant or not. So the surveyors and certifiers have found themselves in hot water over that. And that PI market is all but, been blown up, so to speak. So there's really only a handful of insurers doing that. So the flow-on effect from that is not really completely known yet, because there hasn't really been a case to use as a precedent. So obviously what happened in Melbourne with the Lacrosse Tower, all the findings on that, there were so many different variables that it was very clear when the judge made his ruling, he or she said, this is not to be used as a precedent. This is unique and everything will be gauged on its own merit. So there's not really been a case for non-conforming building materials where they've said, oh, well, yeah, the designer's in on it, the surveyor's in on it, and here's how we're going to apportion the risk. And this is just going to be the cookie cutter approach. The insurers have come out in no uncertain terms and said, hey, this is not our problem. We should not be paying for this. This is a government legislation. This is a failure on a larger scale. We're not going to pay to rectify, these stuff-ups on a colossal scale. So they've made that position fairly clear, and these talks are happening at a very high level in terms of how it's going to be moving forward. But it's kind of, from the insurance front, it's been eerily quiet the last probably 6 to 12 months, which I don't know if that's a good thing.
Maybe everyone's sitting at home in COVID lockdown and no one's been doing anything, but hopefully people have just been busy quietly, right?
Yeah, well, I think that it's kind of a case where, all right, you got to rectify this issue, rectify, and then hang on a sec, who's paying for this again? I think that's going to be the point in which it starts getting a little interesting. So that's just my opinion on it. Obviously, I'm not privy to all the high level discussions, but from where we sit, that's how I read it.
No, that makes a lot of sense. A question from Charles and Michael. What about runoff cover? Is runoff cover less? How does it work?
Yeah. So each insurer will have their own sort of formula for the way that they calculate it. If you go and take 7 years runoff, you should get a better rate. And generally speaking, most of the insurers will charge based on your final years of cover. So if your final year of premium before you retire was, say, $2,000, they'll have a formula for calculating how much they'll charge you for 7 years. And it might be a multiple of, say, four times your annual premium. So you pay them $8,000 and they'll give you 7 years of cover. So they get the money in the bank and you get the extended protection. If you did it the other way and you just did year on year, which is another option, you'd probably see a premium reduce on average about 10% over that period. So, it's $2,000 your first year to match what you paid, and then it goes down to, $1,800 and then down from there. So that's also being tested at the moment because there's so much uncertainty, particularly in the building design and engineering space. A lot of the insurers, so engineers in particular, structural even, they're struggling to get multi-year runoff because the insurers just don't want to lock themselves into those long-term liabilities. They want to do it year on year and basically change the terms as needed. So yeah, it's not great.
Well, I can understand that being all the structural issues that are being on the front page of papers. I can understand why insurance companies are being a bit careful. So maybe just run through for people. They've done all the right things. They've kept all their paperwork. They've done everything we've talked about today. Mm-hmm. What happens when it goes wrong? What happens when they need to make a PI claim? What is the process you can go through? Or one of the bigger problems, they've done everything right, but they're accused of doing wrong. Because I think that's one thing that people forget. Yeah. It doesn't matter whether you're right or wrong. If you get accused of doing something wrong, then you might need to call on your PI insurance.
Yeah, exactly, and that's really important to remember that your professional indemnity insurance doesn't just pay the damages; it also pays legal fees to represent and defend you. So, first thing, as soon as and it's not when you get notified of a court appearance, or it's not when you've tried to solve the issue yourself and you've tried to negotiate for a lower settlement. Needs to be as soon as you first become aware of a potential issue, meaning oh, this doesn't sound good, this might end up somewhere, you know, we don't want to. At that point, and on the very day you first get wind of that, phone your broker, or if you're with a direct insurer, phone them and get some advice. So the way that works, I get a phone call, I'll go through the scenario, I'll make a decision based on the information at hand as to the best way forward. And more often than not, the conservative approach will be to notify the professional indemnity insurer. By notifying the professional indemnity insurer, you get them involved at the ground level so they can be part of the decision-making process. And the decision-making process will be, okay, what do we respond to this demand? Like how are we going to handle it? Are we going to say, are we going to look at it and think, okay, we've got some liability here. If this goes to court, chances are we're going to lose and we're going to be up for all these costs. Can we settle it earlier? Do we feel we've got a strong case and we've got all the documents we need, so we're just going to turn around and say, no, not paying anything, see you in court? And are they going to call that bluff? So first thing, notify your broker insurer, get the solicitors from the insurers involved in that process, because if they're part of the decision making, if it goes pear-shaped, it's not on you. I've seen it too many times where you try and do the right thing by, you know, mitigating the loss, or, oh, you know, like, sorry about that, let me compensate you, we'll waive our fee. As soon as you admit to making a mistake and offer some form of compensation, that is seen as an admission of liability. Then what happens is your client turns around, gets legal advice, and instead of wanting, you know, the $5,000 fee back, all of a sudden they want their house rebuilt, and you get a claim for $300,000. So that whole process can prejudice the insurer's position, and that's one of the exclusions in there. If you try and make settlements or negotiate or admit liability without our authorization, we can reduce or refuse a claim. So they could turn around, you know, in 6 months' time and say, well, we're not going to court to fight this $300,000 claim because we could have settled it by returning your fee for $5,000. So here's your $5,000, that's the end of the claim, we'll catch you later. So you have to get them involved immediately, and just don't worry about, you know, is my premium going to go up? All of that is inconsequential when you look at the flip side, and that's part of the decision that I'll make, and I'll assist you with that. And that's why it's really important to use a broker.
Yes. And, you know, as an example, you know, Daniel's there, he's there to help you. And I think, as he's pointed out, like, waiting too long to get them involved can go badly very quickly. So it's sort of one of those things, you better err on the side of caution and ask for help. And you might say, no, it's all fine, it's all going to be good, or it's not as bad as you think, or at least you'll have someone who knows how it all works to support you through it. Because the problem with insurance and PI claims, some of the best lawyers in the world work on this, and I personally wouldn't want to be taking them on.
Big money in it. There is big money. There is big money. We do have a question here from Jason, just about choosing the right level of cover.
Too quick.
Yeah, I know, right? And looking at the construction value, look, that can be used as some sort of a measuring stick for certain losses. You know, the theory being that, you know, you can't have a loss greater than the construction value of the home, which isn't actually correct, because if you think about a design that goes wrong, and let's say the result is personal injury rather than property damage, your design leads to a slip, trip and fall, which leads to a death. I can guarantee you that, you know, if that was a child, the claims cost would be in the millions, even if it was a new deck for 50,000. So short answer, no, there's no exact science. Depends on, agreements, contracts, and how you're sort of limiting your liability. So
I suppose the good point to make out there is be careful of the contracts and use your contracts to help you with that problem as well.
Definitely.
Sorry, Daniel and Sam, I'm going to have to interrupt because we're coming up to talk, but maybe you can stay online and keep answering questions if there's anything still coming through, because it's really great information. So thank you.
Sure. Yeah.
I'm just going to wrap up the formal part of the meeting for people that have to go. So here's a QR code on screen for your CPD point. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you to our presenters. There was a lot of really good information today. The next online chapter meeting will be Tuesday the 2nd of March at 1 p.m. So hopefully we can look forward to having you join us again. Stay online for a little bit if Daniel and Sam are able to stay on and keep answering your questions. I don't think we've got Lucy Bingle with us anymore, but if you've got any other information that you need on LinkedIn or on the PI insurance, please get in touch and I'm sure we can get the information for you. So thank you very much, and I will see you at the next meeting. Bye for now.